There are no birds in space, no bees, no clouds to drift, no wind to carry seeds. But still she planted a garden. Her name was Lieutenant Mara Voss, last survivor of terraforming convoy T7, when the Koru annihilated Earth's orbital garden. Ships. Everyone thought humanity's last chance at off-world cultivation had died with them. Everyone was wrong. Mara's escape pod had drifted for 13 days before crashing into an abandoned research rig orbiting the dead moon of Verex 9. The station wasn't listed on any map. Its systems were half-fried, power running off a failing fusion cell. Air was thin, heat was rationed, and yet, in the belly of that graveyard, nestled behind sealed blast doors, she found a miracle. A soil bay, half intact, cracked hydroponic trays, rusted nutrient tubes, a shattered dome of reinforced glass, above her revealing the endless dark of space. And just beneath that, a single green shoot, alive. She fell to her knees, tears instantly vaporizing in her helmet. That plant, defying vacuum, radiation, and time, it was alive. And if it could live, maybe humanity could, too. She named it Hope. The garden became her mission. With barely enough oxygen for herself, she rerouted the last backup generator to power UV lamps. She breathed less, slept colder, cannibalized drone parts to repair the irrigation lines, melted ice from the station's hull to water the roots. Every breath she took felt like a gamble. Every drop she gave to the plant felt like defiance. But Mara wasn't alone. On day 29, the outer sensor pinged a ship. Not human, not friendly, the Koru, sleek, obsidian vessels shaped like blades of night, silent, smooth, perfect. They didn't scan her, didn't fire, just hovered, watching. She should have hidden, gone dark. Instead, she stood in the dome, with Hope beside her, and turned on every light the garden had. "If you're going to kill me," she whispered to the stars, "you're going to see what we make first." The ship didn't move. Not for hours. When it finally departed, Mara collapsed beside the plant and laughed until she sobbed. By day 46, Hope had grown to more stems. A bloom opened red, vibrant, unlike any Earth species. She didn't know what it meant, but it filled the dome with something she hadn't felt in weeks. Color, life. Mara began recording logs, stories, songs, soil readings. She spoke to Hope like an old friend, a child, a symbol. "You're going to be the first," she said one night, her breath frosting the inside of her helmet, "and not the last." On day 62, the Koru returned. This time, they landed, and something stepped out. Its form was elegant humanoid, but wrong. Taller, no mouth, skin like living stone. It didn't attack, just stood on the rim of the shattered dome, beneath the stars, staring at her. Then it looked down at Hope and knelt. Mara's pulse thundered. Then it reached into its chest. Into a seam that opened like fluid crystalline pulled out something glowing, a seed that held it out to her. And for the first time in weeks, Mara removed her helmet. The air was thin, her lungs burned, but she took the seed. No words were spoken, but something passed between them. Recognition, not of species, of intent. She was not the only one planting life in a graveyard. The alien left without a sound. The ship vanished into the dark. Mara fell to her knees beside Hope again, now cradling something impossibly ancient and new in her palm. A gift, a challenge, and maybe a beginning. The alien seed was unlike anything Mara had ever seen. It pulsed faintly in her hand, as though breathing. Not mechanical, Not mineral, not organic in the way she understood life, but it was alive. That much she felt in her chest. She placed it beside hope, carefully carving out a hollow in the soil with her bare fingers. It didn't resist, didn't react, just settled into the earth-grown dirt like it had always belonged there. She watched it for hours. On day 63, it sprouted, not gradually. A stalk burst from the soil in a slow-motion explosion of light. It twisted upward, translucent and glowing faint blue, casting shadows across the dome. The moment it broke surface, the station's oxygen sensors spiked. She blinked. O levels. Rising. Impossible. The garden barely produced enough to keep one person breathing, even with hope's miraculous growth. And yet, the readings didn't lie. The seedling was pumping out oxygen like it had tapped into a life system. Beyond physics, she named it Ember, where hope was Earth's defiance. Ember was alien magic. Together, they began to change the station. The air became breathable again, just barely, but enough for Mara to remove her helmet for more than a few minutes at a time. The cracked hydroponics reactivated with renewed energy, fed by Ember's strange luminescence. Fungal networks began sprouting in dead trays. Roots found paths through rusted pipes, like they remembered how the station once worked. The dead place was waking up, but Mara knew peace was borrowed in space. On day 70, she picked up a broadcast, scrambled, faint, but unmistakably human. A distress signal from the Alexandria, a refugee ship reportedly destroyed 2 months ago. She couldn't believe it, but the signal was looping coordinates not far from her sector. She had 2 choices: stay and tend the garden, or leave and search for what might be survivors. She stared at the blinking signal for 6 hours. Then she got up, walked to Hope, and whispered, "I won't leave you. But I need to know we're not alone." So she programmed her drone, the last working one, to maintain the garden systems. If the fusion cell died, the plants would die too. But if even one life on the Alexandria still breathed, she had to try. She set course in the old shuttle docked beneath the belly of the station, patched together with scrap metal and willpower. It coughed to life with the grace of a dying dragon 6 days into the flight. She found it. The Alexandria wasn't destroyed, it was broken. Floating silent in the orbit of a gas giant, its engines offline, hull split in 3. But inside, there were people, a dozen survivors, starving, oxygen failing, half of them barely conscious. When she opened the hatch, they stared at her like she was a ghost. "I have air," she said simply, "and seeds." That was enough. They followed. Her back crammed into the shuttle, barely alive. When they returned to the station, something had changed. Hope was taller, blooming wildly, vibrant. Ember had grown into a tree-like column, now reaching into the cracks of the dome. Its light now golden instead of blue, and standing at the rim again was the alien. But this time, it wasn't alone. 4 others stood. With it, Mara stepped into the dome, followed by the gasping survivors, their lungs finally filling with breathable air. The lead alien turned toward her, and for the first time, it spoke. Not in words. In understanding. "You are gardener." The voice echoed in her skull, soft, ancient, not male or female, just presence. "I am human," she replied aloud, "and we don't die easy." The alien stepped forward and knelt again, placing another seed at her feet. Mara understood. This wasn't just a gift. It was a pact, not between empires, but between survivors. The others followed suit. One by one, the Kuru placed seeds in the soil. Hope, ember, and now more. The dome glowed like a cathedral of color and breath and possibility, and Marawanse's forgotten voice in the void stood taller than she ever had. Not a soldier, not a victim, but a gardener at the edge of the galaxy. The dome became sacred ground. The seeds the Kuru gifted grew fast, faster than ember. Each one bloomed into something unique. A vine that wept clean water, a stalk that gave off radiant heat, a moss that pulsed in rhythm with human breath. The survivors, now settlers, called them miracle flora. The station, once a tomb, was now a living cradle. Oxygen levels stabilized. Food crops took root beside the alien growths. Children who hadn't tasted real fruit in years wept when Mara handed them a fresh strawberry she'd grown from Earth's seed stock. She called it Eden Station. For a few weeks, peace held. Then came the signal. A piercing tone screamed across every receiver on the station. Military-grade encryption, human. It bore the insignia of the Ark Fleet, Earth's last fleet. Scattered after the Kuru decimated the soul. System Mara's heart caught fire. The fleet was alive. She opened the channel. A grainy voice came through. "This is Admiral Rai of Ark Fleet Command. We've received your biosignatures. Identify yourself." "This is Lieutenant Mara Voss," she said, "survivor of Convoy T7. I've established a living ecosystem on Verex 9. I have survivors. Crops, alien cooperation, alien what?" She paused. "The Kuru. They've been helping. They've given us the signal." Cut static. Then another voice came. Cold, hard. "Lieutenant, you are ordered to secure the station. Do not allow any Kuru to remain. We are en route. Purge all foreign technology. This is not a negotiation." The call ended. Silence bloomed in the dome. Mara stared at Ember now, a twisting tower of translucent gold, and at the Kuru figures, who stood at its base, peaceful, unmoving. The settlers turned to her, eyes wide. "They're going to destroy everything," one whispered. "They'll kill the garden, they'll kill them," another said. "The Kuru know," Mara said. Her voice didn't shake. "Not while I'm breathing." She called a council that night in the hydroponic bay. "We built something real here," she told them. "Not with weapons, with will, with patience, with seeds." "They won't see it that way," muttered Vero, a grizzled ex-captain. "To the fleet, alien means threat. Period. We prove them wrong," Mara said. "We show them. With what? Hugs and vines. With truth." She turned to the Kuru leader, who now called itself Solon. "Will you help us defend this place?" The alien placed one long hand on Ember's trunk. "This soil has accepted us. We will not leave it." Mara looked at the settlers. "Then we prepare." They didn't build missiles. They didn't craft cannons. They turned the garden into a fortress of life. The moss was re-engineered to release a blinding bioluminescence on command. The water vines could constrict tight as steel. Cables. The crops, enhanced with Kuru biotech, grew edible spines that hardened like ceramic, perfect for barriers. Hope, now 15 feet tall, bloomed with flowers that could disperse spores when threatened, spores that made it hard to breathe, but didn't kill. Mara didn't want war. She wanted understanding, but she'd defend life with life. On day 98, the fleet arrived. A dozen human warships, bristling with weapons, hung in low orbit. Mara stood in the dome. No armor, no helmet, her skin, her sweat, her soil-stained hands. "This is Eden Station," she broadcast. "We are alive. We are growing." The Kuru helped make that possible. The reply was immediate. "You are compromised. Step away from the dome." No. A pause. Then fire rained from the sky. A kinetic strike shattered the outer hull. Alarms screamed. Plants trembled. The dome cracked. And still Mara stood. Solon stepped beside her, raised both hands. A column of energy burst upward. A weapon, but a signal. A message in light. It projected images into orbit. Memories, hope's first bloom. Embers glow. The seeds placed gently in soil. Children laughing in the garden. The fleet hesitated, and that moment, just that hesitation, was everything. Mara broadcast one more time. "We are human. But here we are more. We plant, we heal, we grow. If you kill this place, you kill the future." The fleet did not respond, but they did not fire again. For 3 days, the fleet lingered in orbit, guns trained, engines hot, the sky above Eden. Station crackled with tension. Inside the dome, Mara barely slept. She walked among the plants like a priestess tending sacred ground, adjusting growth rates, managing photosynthesis cycles, checking structural integrity of the garden's living. Defense. Hope now loomed over her, its thick vines coiling around the damaged frame of the dome like it was holding the station together. Ember shimmered beside it, growing stranger by the day, its glow pulsing in sync with the station's heartbeat. And at the center of it all stood the settlers, the children, and the Koru, breathing the same air, eating the same food, living a future no one had dared to imagine. But it wasn't sustainable. The fleet wanted answers. The silence was ending. On day 101, a dropship landed just beyond the outer ring. Heavy boots hit steel. 7 humans in matte black armor, weapons at the ready. At their center, Admiral Rai himself. Mara stood at the hatch, arms crossed, soil still streaked across her face. "Lieutenant Voss," Rai said, voice sharp, "step aside. This facility is under Arkfleet Reclamation Authority." "No," she said simply. "You're not destroying this place. You've allied with a hostile alien species. Do you realize the risk? They're not hostile. They gave us life. We didn't just survive, here we healed. Together, they've manipulated you." Mara laughed once, bitter and low. Manipulation doesn't grow strawberries in vacuum. The soldiers began to fan out. One moved toward hope. Mara stepped between them. "I swear to every star left in the sky, you lay one hand on that plant and you'll regret it." Rai raised a hand, halting the soldier. "You're threatening a fleet officer. I'm defending a civilization." Behind her, the children gathered, clutching fruit baskets and spools of glowing moss. The Kuru stood silently, regal, hands open. One child, little Sona, stepped forward and held out a blossom to the Admiral. He didn't take it. "This is not diplomacy," Rai said. "This is treason." "Then arrest me," Mara whispered. "But look around first. Really look." He did dot at the canopy of gold and green winding above his head, at the moss lighting walkways with soft warmth, at embers towering light, pulsing with life, and then the Koru beside it, not raising weapons, not preparing for war, just existing. Rai's hand twitched. The soldiers raised their rifles. Hope responded. Its vines surged upward and flared. Wide, not attacking, but shielding. A wall of thick leaves, humming with power. A wind blasted through the demoxygen, warm, alive. "Stand down," Rai roared. But Mara didn't move, and neither did the Koru. The dome pulsed with bioluminescence, an earthborn light blending in waves across the ceiling. Suddenly, Ember's core burst with golden threads, extending outward to wrap around the other plants. A network was forming, a message encoded in biology. The entire garden was becoming one living organism. Solon stepped forward and spoke into Mara's mind again. "We remember extinction. We choose life. Will they?" Mara turned to the Admiral. "We're not a threat," she said. "We're an answer. You can fire, you can kill us, or you can learn." Rai stared at her for a long, painful second. Then, to everyone's shock, he removed his helmet. The air hit his lungs like a revelation. He staggered, then inhaled again, slowly, deeply, double quotes this. "This isn't possible," he muttered. "You made this with them." "No," Mara said. "We made this because of them." He looked at the blossom in the child's hand again. Then, at Mara, "This changes everything," he whispered. Behind him, the soldiers lowered their rifles, not from command but from awe. They saw it now. The future wasn't forged in fire. It was grown. Rai looked at Solon, then back at Mara. "I need to speak to the fleet." "No more threats?" she asked. "No more blind orders?" She nodded once, and for the first time since Earth fell, peace began to bloom, not from surrender, but from understanding. Admiral Rai stood in the center of Eden Station's dome as the wind rustled through leaves not born of Earth. He turned slowly, taking in every vine, every root, every alien blossom that pulsed with light. His voice, when it returned, was not the voice of a commander but of a man who'd seen the end and stumbled into a new beginning. "We were trained to believe the Koru were monsters," he said. "But this is not war." Mara stepped forward. "It's life, shared, fought for, planted." Behind her, hope bloomed higher than ever, wrapping its vines through Ember's glowing branches. And all around them, the new Kuru flora pulsed. In rhythm, different species, different DNA, but unified, one living system, a whisper of what peace could be. Within hours, Rai transmitted a full data package to the Ark fleet. Biological readings, environmental reports, first contact details, visual evidence of human-Koru coexistence. Then he made a second transmission, a direct order: stand down, do not engage, redirect to observational orbit, and await further diplomatic orders. The command spread through the fleet like a shockwave. The warships didn't retreat, but they didn't attack either. They watched, and from above, Eden Station began to glow like a heartbeat in the void. Word spread fast, first through the fleet, then across scattered colonies and deep space outposts. Stories of a dome where human children and Kuru played together, of fruit that healed radiation burns, of an earthborn woman who built a garden in the bones of a war-torn station and fed the stars. They came, scholars, biologists, refugees, pilgrims, not just humans, other species, too. Those who'd feared the Koru, those who'd fought them, those who'd never known anything but ruin. Eden became a sanctuary. Mara watched from the highest platform one evening, her hands buried in soil as she tended the roots of Ember. Solon stood beside her in silence. "We've changed them," she said. Solon responded without moving. "No, you reminded them." She looked up. "Of what?" "That life is not won in fire. It is offered in soil." Later that night, Mara sat beneath hope's branches, surrounded by laughter and music echoing through the corridors, people dancing, alive again. The children had woven glowing vines into patterns across the walls, each one telling a story of survival, of a pod in darkness, of a shoot breaking soil, of an alien offering a seed to a dying woman, and in the center one phrase written in a dozen languages: she built a garden in space. Tears welled in Mara's eyes, not from sorrow but from the quiet, overwhelming joy of continuance. This was no longer a station, it was a beginning. Years later, historians would mark Eden Station as the turning point not of a war, but of a species, the first garden to grow from human hands and alien roots. A place where the galaxy learned a new language: growth.healing.hope. And when they asked Mara how it began, she would always say the same thing: I found a plant in the dark, and I gave it my breath, and the stars finally breathed back.